questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Il y a 8 ans,
8 years ago, the Prime Minister promised that he was going to make things easier for Canadians, especially in terms of finding affordable housing. The very day that he made that promise, it cost $1,400 to pay an average mortgage. How much does it cost today? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know full well that across the country, people are still grappling with challenges in terms of cost of living and housing, and that is why we set up a national housing strategy in 2017. And last week, I was in Guelph, Ontario, to announce $4 billion of investment in municipalities from coast to coast to coast to be able to build more affordable housing more quickly. And we know that it takes investment to deliver the goods for Canadians, and that's what we're doing. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was that he promised in 2015, and I quote, "We will make it easier for Canadians to find an affordable place to call home." When he made that promise, the average monthly payment for a mortgage in Canada was a modest $1,400. What is it today?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Of course, situations vary across the country, but we have stepped up with housing programs in big cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, but we've also stepped up in smaller municipalities and rural areas across the country that need supports in housing. Unlike the previous Conservative government that didn't feel the federal government had any role to play in housing, we stepped up in tangible, concrete ways to deliver more housing, to deliver rapid housing, to deliver programs that fought homelessness, that programs that increase the rental stocks. We will continue to be investing to support people alongside our partners in the provinces and municipalities.
Leader of the Opposition.
He wants to compare with the Conservative record. I gave him a chance. I told him when the Conservatives left office, the average monthly payment on a new house was $1,400. I asked him to tell us what it is today. Either he doesn't know or he's too afraid to admit, but it's gone up to over $3,100. That's over a 100% increase. When the Prime Minister took office, a 2-bedroom apartment in Canada's 10 biggest cities, on average, was $1,100. How much is it today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 8 years, we've seen significant growth in the economy. We've seen more Canadians getting jobs than ever before. We've seen more Canadians lifted out of poverty than ever before because of the things we did. From the very first initiative, which was lowering taxes for the middle class and raising them on the wealthiest 1%, initiatives that Conservatives voted against, to delivering a Canada Child Benefit that puts more money in the pockets of families that need it and stopped sending child benefit checks to millionaires. We've continued to move forward in supporting communities, supporting home builders, supporting homeowners and home buyers. We will continue to be there for Canadians.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he would have you believe that Canadians have never had it so good. Well, ask the 9 in 10 young people who believe they will never own a home, the 35-year-olds living in their parents' basements because they can't afford the new doubling of the average down payment, mortgage payment, or rental costs. And speaking of paychecks, when he took office, the average paycheck, you only needed 39% of the average paycheck to make monthly payments on the average house. That number has risen to 62%. By every objective measurement, things are more expensive and Canadians are taking home less. How did he spend so much to achieve so little?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Across the country, we've seen record job growth. We've seen record number of Canadians lifted out of poverty. We've seen investments to fight climate change that have put more money in people's pockets. We've continued to move forward in growing the economy. But it is only, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader trying to say Canadians have never had it so good, because we know Canadians are struggling. And that's why we continue to step up with investments in dental care, investments in low-income rental supports, 2 initiatives that the Conservatives voted against. We will continue to be there to deliver for Canadians while we deliver a better future for everyone.
Leader of the Opposition.
He's trying to talk about everything but the housing questions I asked. And it's easy to understand why. When he took office, housing was affordable. Now it's impossibly expensive. In fact, it's much more expensive than around the rest of the world. Vancouver is now the third most overpriced housing market, and Toronto the 10th worst in the world, worse than Manhattan, than Singapore, than London, than countless other places with more people, more money, and less land. In fact, the average house price last year in the United States was almost half less than it is here in Canada. Why is housing so much more expensive here than elsewhere in the world? Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have continually invested in programs and supports for Canadians that have seen millions of families entering new homes, getting the supports they needed, millions of refurbishments, millions of supports right across the country. But it's interesting to contrast the Conservative record on that. In the last election campaign, the Conservative platform promise on housing was to give tax breaks to wealthy landlords. That was their approach on housing. Well, we contrasted with significant investments in delivering for first-time home buyers, delivering for people facing homelessness, delivering for Canadian families to access better housing.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, many Chinese foreign nationals, under the solemn responsibility of the Prime Minister, have been forced, under threat, to return to China. Can you imagine what awaits them when they return there? Our main ally is coming to Ottawa tomorrow. Isn't this one more reason to tell him that he cannot choose who will cross into Canada? And isn't it a good idea to hold a public inquiry? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the very outset, I have said that it is not up to me to launch a public inquiry because it was perhaps not the right thing to do. And that is why we turn to an expert, to someone who is unimpeachable, to establish the best way of moving forward. And that is why we chose the former Governor General to decide whether there will be a public inquiry. And he will also ensure that the different communities that we have do the right thing to make sure Canadians trust the results. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, yes, allow me to distinguish between the Chinese Communist regime and Chinese people and the extraordinary and ancient Chinese cultural. Foreign interference, illegal funding, industrial espionage, and the forced repatriation of Chinese Canadians. Look at all that. That is enough. Are we now at the point where we're going to say that a cronyism type of appointment is not going to get the job done? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Canadians understand full well that for such serious issues, it doesn't take more partisanship, it takes less. And that is why we chose an eminent Canadian who is going to be able to follow up on all of these issues to ensure that the tools that we have and the methods we choose to ensure electoral integrity and the protection of our diaspora is done. So we need less partisanship, and that's what we're offering, whereas the opposition is playing partisan tactics.
We're seeing the cost of living continue to hit hard across the country. People are struggling with the cost of everything. We know that some numbers have come down with inflation, but really, where it counts like grocery, inflation is still over 10%. That means people go into a grocery store, pick up items, and realize they can't afford it and put it back. But at the same time, corporate CEOs for these grocery stores are making record profits. So when will the Prime Minister stop the excess profit being made by his CEO friends and stand up for Canadians so they can afford their groceries?
Hear, hear. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as inflation was hitting in the fall, we stepped up with support for Canadians, support for 11 million Canadians with a GST rebate over 6 months. We moved forward on dental care support so that over 200,000 kids can now afford to go to the dentists. We're moved forward with extra help for families that need help on paying their rent. These are the kinds of things we will continue to do to help Canadians. Child care down, cut in half and down to $10 a day for millions of families across this country. These are the kinds of things that have made a difference. We will continue to be there for Canadians, including with the budget coming out next week.
Honourable member for Burnaby South.
Le coût de la vie augmente.
The cost of living is increasing. It's more and more difficult to make ends meet, and it's especially difficult to find affordable housing. Since this Prime Minister came to power, rental prices have doubled because the rules created by the Liberals and the Conservatives favor ultra-rich Canadians. So when will this Prime Minister stop giving preferential treatment to his rich cronies and build more affordable housing for Canadian families? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for the past 8 years, we have made historic investments in rapid housing, in affordable housing, and that is why I was so happy to be in Guelph last week to announce an investment of $4 billion in municipalities across the country to expedite the creation of housing, especially affordable housing. We know that there is still more work to be done, but with our Housing Accelerator Fund, with the Rapid Housing Initiative, and with homelessness programs, we are going to continue to be there for Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Why it is that mortgage payments have doubled under his 8 years, why rent payments have doubled under his 8 years, why Canadian house prices are about 72% more expensive than their American counterparts, even though they have 10 times the population on even less land. He couldn't answer any of these questions. The answer, according to Scotiabank, is Canada has the lowest number of housing units per 1,000 residents of any G7 country. The number of housing units per 1,000 Canadians has been falling since 2016, right when the Prime Minister took office. Why is the Prime Minister continually given billions of dollars to municipal government gatekeepers to block construction for Canadian homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this goes to the heart of the disagreement on housing between the Leader of the Opposition and I. I recognized, and this government recognized, that we need to work with municipalities to help them change zoning laws, to help them accelerate their permitting processes, to create more opportunities to build affordable homes for Canadians across the country, whereas he sits back and attacks them and proposes absolutely nothing. We're stepping up with $4 billion to accelerate the supply of homes across this country. We will continue to be investing and working with partners instead of picking fights with everyone and hoping that it all settles itself.
Leader of the Opposition.
No, actually, the disagreement is that under our government, housing was affordable. Under this government, it's eye-poppingly expensive. That's the disagreement. And let's just look at the facts. Canada has the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Why? We rank 64th in the OECD in the time it takes to get a building permit. Government red tape adds as much as $650,000 to each house in some cities. And the Prime Minister has made it worse by giving the gatekeepers who block the building more money. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, this goes to the heart of the announcement we made last week on the Housing Accelerator Fund, which does work directly with municipalities to accelerate the delivery and the construction of affordable housing. Now, Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite would have you believe is that doing nothing to address the housing crisis would have somehow made it better. He criticizes us for the investments of billions of dollars in housing over the past years. Just think, if things are expensive now, how much worse it would have been had we had a Conservative government that continued to cross its arms and cut services to Canadians for the past 8 years.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You don't have to imagine what prices would have been were I making the decisions, because when I was the housing minister, the average mortgage payment and the average rent payment were half of what they are now. History. Now, his solution is to continue to send billions of dollars. He spent $89 billion on housing affordability to double mortgage payments, double rental costs, double the needed down payment. How did he spend so much to achieve so little?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Next thing, the member opposite's going to complain that housing prices are higher today than they were in my father's time as Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to invest in Canadians and recognize that while we grow the economy, while we...
I'm going to have to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'm having a hard time hearing the answer, and I'm sure other people are. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, you've got about 20 seconds left. Please continue.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way we've contributed to a growing economy, to lifting Canadians out of poverty, to putting more money in the pockets of the middle class and people working hard to join it. And that's why we're continuing to invest in building houses, in working with municipalities, in working with the provinces on fighting homelessness, creating affordable homes, and creating more opportunities for all Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You know, when you look at his promise to make it easier for Canadians to get a home, and since that time, the payments have actually doubled. You listen to him rattle off the billions he's spent to achieve that failure. He kind of reminds you of that shady contractor who promises you that he'll build you a brand new home, but the cost just keeps going up and up and up, and the house never actually gets built, Mr. Speaker. And that is exactly where young people are today, stuck in their parents' basements, their dreams crushed because they can't get themselves a home and start a family. Instead of siding with the gatekeeper and sending billions of dollars more money to those bureaucracies, why won't he get them out of the way to bring homes Canadians can afford?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader is actually arguing that less investments in Canadians, less investments alongside municipalities and provinces, fewer programs to support Canadians would somehow have solved this problem. That's the problem with Conservatives. They think that cuts can create growth. They think that fewer investments in Canadians will get people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and succeed. Mr. Speaker, we believe in investing in the middle class and people working hard to join it, and that's why Canadians is doing better than they were before.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
In other words, we should forgive him for failing because he fails expensively. You know, Mr. Speaker, what we propose is actually to incentivize home building. Why doesn't the government link the number of federal infrastructure dollars a big city gets to the number of houses that actually get completed? That would incentivize them to get the gatekeepers out of the way. We could bring in penalties for big city bureaucrats that block construction and boost infrastructure dollars for those that get out of the way. Why won't he pay for results instead of paying for failure?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians well remember that when the honourable member was in government, the characterization of the relationships between provinces, municipalities and the federal government were fights all the time. Conflicts and fights with cities, conflicts and fights with rural mayors, conflicts and fights with provinces, and cuts to services that Canadians relied on. And he is demonstrating that 8 years of investments in Canadians, in growth, in lifting Canadians out of poverty, in creating jobs, in fighting climate change, just makes him want to go back to the good old days of Stephen Harper with cuts and fights with everyone.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says that Canadians shouldn't worry about the fact that our young people are living in homeless shelters while they go to school, or that they're condemned to tent cities or their parents' basements, because all the politicians are getting along. And that's what's important. As long as we go along to get along and have wonderful meetings and conversations, he believes we shouldn't worry about the poverty that the gatekeeping policies are causing. Why won't the Prime Minister link federal infrastructure dollars for cities to the number of houses they allow to be built? Right. Find those gatekeepers who block and bonus those that build so that we can have more affordable homes for our young people.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The member opposite wants to talk about poverty. Let's talk about poverty. The very first thing he did after we became government was vote against a tax hike on the wealthiest so we could lower them for the middle class. He then voted against a Canada Child Benefit that has lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. We created millions of jobs while lifting millions of Canadians out of poverty, Mr. Speaker. Our focus on growing the middle class and supporting people working hard to join it has delivered and is continuing to deliver even as we stand with people going through difficult times right now. You cannot grow this economy through cuts, no matter much he shouts that he...
I'm sorry?
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says that people should not be partisan. So why do we get the impression, everyone in this House, that he is prepared to do anything and the contrary to not hold a public inquiry, one that is independent and transparent, and that is urgent, and that should not be led by a family friend, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, what Canadians expect is that issues as serious as foreign interference, especially Chinese foreign interference, be treated responsibly and seriously. And that is why we know that the former Governor General will do his job by and questioning his objectivity is not worthy of people in this House. So we know that he will do a good job despite the partisan attacks against him. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. My point is that the goods to be delivered are for all citizens and everyone in this House. All the opposition parties in this House want a public, independent inquiry, whereas all the cameras in the United States will be focused on the Prime Minister who is tolerating interference, who shows that he has something to hide. So who is the partisan person here? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have established an independent process to focus on a genuine problem of Chinese interference, but we haven't just chosen a special rapporteur. We've created a committee of parliamentarians, including a member of the Bloc Québécois, to examine security issues across Canada. And they do their work very seriously. And they will publish reports, as they have always done, that parliamentarians can read. We do our work independently in a nonpartisan fashion and unlike the opposition parties.
Well, the Prime Minister has failed to make housing affordable even after 89 billion precious tax dollars have been spent on that failure. I've suggested to him we should link the number of dollars a big city gets to the number of houses they allow to be built to incentivize more building. He doesn't like that idea. Well, he doesn't like results, but here's another idea. We build transit stations with federal money. In the most successful transit and housing jurisdictions on earth, there are apartments next to those stations. Will the Prime Minister require every federally funded transit station have high-density apartments so that our seniors and young people can live right next to the bus or train?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to congratulate the Leader of the opposition for actually talking about concrete ideas. For a long time, his only recommendation to help Canadians was invest in Bitcoin. That'll help you avoid inflation. But now he's talking about credible opportunities to help Canadians. What's nice, though, Mr. Speaker, is the idea of density around transit hubs is something that we're already moving forward on and have invested in over the past few years. We know how important is that. But I will remind the member opposite that in order to invest in density around transit hubs, one has to invest in public transit, which his government never did, which we have continued to do to record levels.
Of the opposition.
The difference is, like housing, we actually got it built. And what I'm proposing is not to dream about housing around transit, but to actually require every single federally funded transit station be pre-approved for high-density housing so our young people and our seniors can live right next to the bus and train. He doesn't like that idea. Well, how about this one? He's got 37,000 many of them largely empty buildings, big, ugly buildings. Why doesn't he sell off 15% of them so we can convert those into affordable housing for our young people?
The right honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, part of a question period and answer period needs to be taking yes for an answer. And I said yes. Not only do we like the idea of density around public transit spaces, we've been doing it for years. We've been putting it in our agreements with municipalities as we invest historic amounts in public transit. Now, the government, the former Conservative government, refused to invest in any infrastructure larger than a doorknob or an economic action plan sign. We're continuing to invest in significant public transit, including with a permanent public transit fund, something that the Conservatives have again campaigned against. We will continue to be there to invest in Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Their very first infrastructure project was to install a doorknob in the Prime Minister's office when they took office, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, speaking of housing.
We want to hear the questions as much as we want to hear the answers. So I'm going to ask everyone just to take a deep breath and calm down. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, you got 21 seconds left.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes I even crack myself up here. Mr. Speaker, he is presiding over a 37,000 building empire. These big, ugly, and largely empty buildings. Why doesn't he sell off 15% of 6,000 buildings so that we can convert those buildings into affordable housing for our young people so that they can actually have a roof over their head and a place to call home?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, once again, this is an idea that we're already moving forward with, looking at federal properties and how we can convert them either through the rapid housing process or by working with municipalities to deliver more affordable housing. But I'm very pleased to see the member opposite moving off his recommendations on buying Bitcoin as a way of avoiding inflation and actually putting forward concrete ideas. It's great to have a real debate over ideas. I wish he'd paid attention to the ideas we have so he can maybe propose different ones or perhaps better ones.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the only ideas he's put forward on housing is to double the rent, double the mortgage costs, double down payments, and this is on the backs of hardworking Canadians who are paying more tax than ever. On April 1st, he wants to raise the cost of housing even more by increasing the cost of home heating, a monthly expense that goes with owning a home. This at a time when seniors are already making the heartbreaking decision between eating and heating. He wants to triple the carbon tax. Will he cancel his plan to raise taxes on our seniors, on our workers, on our farmers, and get his hands out of their pockets?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as of April, the places across the country that have the carbon backstop in place will receive more money. We are delivering more money than the price on pollution costs to average families across this country, because we know that people both want to see us fighting climate change and preparing for the economy and challenges of the future while making things more affordable to Canadians. That's why our climate action incentive puts more money back in the pockets of people in his riding, people right across the country in backstop areas. We will continue to fight climate change and support affordability for Canadians.
Hear, hear.
Well, member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act proposes a plan to create good jobs and protect the environment. Sadly, the Prime Minister hasn't shown the same leadership here in Canada. We need a plan that creates good jobs, good union jobs, and also protects the environment. Sadly, if that plan is not here, we're going to lose jobs in Canada, and that's a serious threat. So will the Prime Minister make a commitment today that the budget will include a plan to respond to the IRA, but in addition, that any investments that go to corporations are tied with guaranteed strings attached that will create jobs in communities?
Here, here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to say that over the past 8 years, it has been an honor and a pleasure to work so closely with organized labor across this country. We've been able to build opportunities for middle-class Canadians right across the country by standing up for unions, by ensuring that, first of all, we reversed the anti-union legislation that the Conservatives had put forward under Stephen Harper, but more than that, that we build for a stronger future in partnership. We've invested in union training, in better opportunities for apprenticeships. We've partnered with unions on infrastructure builds. We will continue to draw in investments around the world, whether it's Volkswagen or Michelin or DeFasco or any number of investments across the country.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has given $560 million to a company owned by Loblaws to deliver services for veterans. Now, what's happened is that the services aren't adequate. They're not meeting the needs of veterans. It's clear that the contract isn't doing what's necessary to provide veterans with the dignity and respect they need. So will the government admit that this contract is botched, it's failing people, it's failing veterans, and just cancel it?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to do what the NDP suggests, which is what the Conservatives did many years ago and cut services to veterans. We saw what happened when the Conservative government shuttered 9 veteran services offices so that they could nickel and dime those who had served this country. As the NDP proposes that we cut services to veterans, we're not going to do that. We're going to continue to be there to invest in supports for our veterans, as we have since the very beginning, with over $10 billion in fresh investments to support veterans. There's lots more to do, but we owe a duty of care to our veterans, and that's why we will continue to step up despite the requests of the opposition to cut services for veterans.
Honourable Member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, after a decade of neglect under the Harper government, the Canadian auto sector is finally re-emerging as a global leader. And when asked about the opposition leader's criticism of the Volkswagen investment our government has attracted to Canada, the Ontario Premier shrugged them off and characterized them as a political comments. Even the Conservative Premier of Ontario, Mr. Speaker, knows that this is a good outcome and that the federal Liberals are bringing home jobs to Ontario. Can the Prime Minister please elaborate what this means for Canadians and Canadian workers across the country?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we join the member for London West and all Canadians in celebrating the fact that Volkswagen chose St. Thomas, Ontario for their first ever battery factory in North America. This historic investment is a major vote of confidence in Canadian workers and in Canadians' battery ecosystem, and shows that our country is a green supplier of choice. That's why it was so puzzling to see the opposition leader criticize this announcement, even as members of his own caucus celebrated our landmark step forward for Canadian jobs and Canadian families.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the Prime Minister's carbon tax costs families more than they get back in rebates every single province it applies in, according to his own parliamentary budget officer. Now we learned from the Federation of Independent Business that, quote, despite collecting billions in carbon tax revenues, the federal government has returned less than 1% of the promised proceeds to small businesses. This job-killing tax is driving up the costs on small local businesses that support communities right across the country. Will the Prime Minister tell us how much would an average corner store owned by a ma and pa get back in rebates for all the carbon tax they're going to pay on their heat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's increasingly clear that the Conservatives are struggling to continue with their anti-climate change arguments. The fact that they do not think that fighting climate change is a way of growing the economy. We're seeing investments come in from around the world. We're seeing Canadians understand that innovation and clean solutions are part and parcel of not just a stronger future for our economy in general, but for their jobs, their careers, and their kids' careers. We're going to continue to show leadership around the world in drawing in green investments while we support small businesses with some of the lowest small business taxes in the world. These are things that we will continue to...
Leader of the Opposition.
From corner stores to car mechanics, they have to pay this carbon tax. I asked the Prime Minister how much they get back. He wouldn't answer because, of course, the answer is zero. It's a gigantic tax grab. It's also a tax on food. When you tax the farmers that make the food and the truckers that transport it, you tax the people who eat it at the end of the supply chain. The Carleton Mushroom Farms, just a half an hour south of here, employs 100 people. Their carbon tax bill for the month of July was $9,000. What do you expect them to do? Put that on customers' food bills?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I guess the Leader of the Opposition truly thinks that the third time's the charm. Twice already, they have tried to campaign against putting a price on pollution. They've campaigned against having a plan to fight climate change and grow the economy, and they failed the first two times. Maybe this time they'll get it right, and Canadians will realize that climate change is a scam, according to to the Conservative members. The fact is, Canadians know that fighting climate change and growing the economy while supporting families and investing in small businesses is the only path forward. And the fact that they're continuing to stand against that is really a shame, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's not a climate plan, it is a tax plan. He has not met a single emissions target since he became Prime Minister. All he's managed to do is suck more money out of the pockets of Canadians. It's enough to make a man drink, but he's taxing that too. I have in my hands a letter from the Canadian breweries workers. These are union workers who say Canada is experiencing the highest cost of living increases in a generation. This is squeezing family budgets and making workers in the brewery sector nervous about their jobs. They're calling on the Prime Minister to cancel his planned tax increase on beer and spirits. Will he listen to these union workers and cancel the tax hike?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Always recognize the important contributions that Canadian wine, beer, and spirits producers make to the Canadian economy. It's why we cut taxes for small businesses and eliminated the excise duty on low-alcohol beer. We will continue to be there for small businesses right across the country, even as we promote extraordinary Canadian products like Canadian wine, beer, and spirits.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, il augmente les taxes sur...
He's raising taxes on gas, on heating, on electricity, on food, on family income, and everything else, and now is increasing taxes on beer and spirits. Unionized workers who produce these products in Canada say that this will hurt their jobs, their salaries, and cost of living for all Canadians. When will he finally listen to unionized workers and say that he will cancel this tax increase for Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We all know that Canadian wine, beer, and spirits producers make a significant contribution to the Canadian economy. That's why we reduced taxes for small businesses. We removed excise tax on low-alcohol beer. We're always defending our small businesses, and we will always promote the great quality of our wine, spirits, and beer production in Canada. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, we have to talk about Amira El-Gabari again. She did her first tour against Islamophobia. And in Ontario, she attacked Bill 21 on secularism. In her opinion, her job is to fight laws like this one. That's how she used her first official outing. So I'm asking the Prime Minister to clarify, is her mandate about building bridges between communities or touring Canada to fight Quebec's laws? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always defend the rights of minorities. I know as a Quebecer how important it is to defend our French language, to defend our culture in a minority situation, to defend official languages, and yes, to defend freedom of religion in this country. That's why we will always be there to defend individual rights. And that's why we criticize preventive use of the notwithstanding clause, which suspends fundamental rights before even being able to go before the courts to defend those rights. The Honourable Member for Drummond. That's exactly what the National Assembly was concerned about when it unanimously denounced Ms. El Gawabi's appointment. She's clearly not using her position to build bridges and improve understanding between different realities, Muslim and non-Muslim, or to combat racism. She's using her position to rally Canada against Quebec's Bill 21 and feed the prejudice that secularism in the state is discriminatory. Is that a blunder on her part, or is that exactly what the Prime Minister intended when he created this position? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm always surprised to the extent that the Bloc Québécois seems ready to choose minorities they want to defend. The truth is that defending minority voices, defending official languages, defending culture, defending freedom of thought is important to a free society. I hope that they won't continue to attack the idea of defending minority rights throughout the country. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It took the Harper government only 3 months to get the Americans to back down and pay back and stop collecting illegal tariffs on softwood. When this Prime Minister took office, the Americans smelled weakness, and they slapped those tariffs right back on, and you know what? He backed down. The Harper government got an exemption to Buy America laws, and within months of this Prime Minister taking office, the Americans slapped it right back on again, and he backed down again. He's now even saying he can't protect our borders against illegal border crossing without the permission of the United States President. Will he announce resolutions to these problems tomorrow, or will he just back down again?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
When Canadians face one of the most significant threats to our jobs, to our growth, to our prosperity, in the threat of cancellation of NAFTA, the recommendation from Mr. Harper, the recommendation from the Conservatives is, oh, you need to capitulate. But that's not what Canadians did. That's not what this government did. We stood strongly. We got them to lift tariffs on steel and aluminum. We renegotiated NAFTA in our favor. We continue to stand up for Canadians, Canadian workers right across the country. We will take no lessons in capitulation to the Americans from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker.
Right. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
On a prévu que le Premier ministre allait capituler.
We expected the Prime Minister to capitulate, and that's what he did. He signed an agreement allowing Americans to continue with illegal tariffs on our softwood lumber, which hurts our forestry workers. He capitulated again with Buy America. And Mexico has an exemption, whereas Canada doesn't. And he said we need permission from the Americans to protect our border, something we never needed before. Will he finally get up and stand up for Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We all remember that when Canadians were facing the biggest threat to our economy, which was the idea that President Trump was going to cancel NAFTA. We held on. We pushed back against the Americans in spite of the fact that Mr. Harper and the Conservatives were encouraging us to give in, to not bother Mr. Trump and accept what he was offering. We stood up for Canadian workers, and we saw tariffs on steel and aluminum removed, and we were able to negotiate in our favor.
Mais, Monsieur le Président, c'est lui qui accepte.
But, Mr. Speaker, he's the one who accepted all Mr. Trump's demands. Mr. Trump and the Mexicans signed an agreement and presented it to the Prime Minister, who accepted it without any changes, including tariffs on our forestry products. Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives were in power, we were able to solve the problem in 3 months. It's been 8 years now that they haven't been able to do so. Yes or no? Will he finally be able to get done in 8 years what it took 3 months for the Conservatives to do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I understand to what point the Conservatives need to make partisan attacks. But they're not going to rewrite history. We were able to renegotiate NAFTA to defend Canada's cultural industry, to defend Canadian workers, to defend our dairy industry and supply management. We've defended workers' interests in Canada. We will continue to do so. While the Conservatives were encouraging us to give in, we stood up for Canadians, and that's what we're going to continue to do in partnership with the Americans.
Or Yukon.
Monsieur le Président, la situation du
Mr. Speaker, since 2021 in Afghanistan, the situation's been very difficult for women and girls who are persecuted every day. The United Nations confirmed that the number of Afghans who need help is unprecedented. Can the Prime Minister tell us about Canada's efforts to support the Afghan people? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Yukon for his excellent question and his hard work. We've tabled Bill C-41 to allow humanitarian organizations to offer vital aid to the Afghan people while maintaining our strong anti-terrorist legislation. This effort is added to the $156 million that we've invested in international organizations since August 2021. I hope that my colleagues on the other side will support the quick passage of Bill C-41, which means in supporting quick aid to the people of Afghanistan, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The former Conservative government obtained an exemption from Buy American policies during the Obama years. The Americans reapplied them once this Prime Minister came to power. In the agreement he signed, he allowed Buy America to become bigger and to affect the federal government's projects, not just smaller state projects. The Mexicans obtained an exemption. Prime Minister Harper was able to obtain it. The Mexicans were able to obtain it. Will this Prime Minister get an exemption from Buy America tomorrow? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we saw to what point the Americans wanted to create an electric car industry by excluding Canada. However, the work that we did with our partners in the United States allowed us to highlight how integrated we are on both sides of the border. For instance, when it comes to building cars, we were able to get an exemption in that industry. So we're going to continue to work hand in hand with our American partners, which will lead to good jobs for Canadians, economic growth, and productive competition with the rest of the world. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How badly he's capitulated on Buy America. Get this straight. Harper got an exemption to Buy America in the Obama era to protect our construction workers and their paychecks. This Prime Minister allowed Trump to slap Buy America on, and then he signed a deal that would allow the expansion of Buy America from just being at the state level to the federal level. And now the Mexicans have an exemption from Buy America and we don't. This is a catastrophic failure for our construction workers as a result of this Prime Minister's weakness. Will he get a deal to end Buy America for Canadians tomorrow?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The issue of protecting Canadian jobs and ensuring growth for the future is a deeply serious issue that must be taken seriously, which is why you really shouldn't be just making stuff up as the Leader of the Opposition is. The fact of the matter is we will continue to stand up for Canadian jobs, work closely with the Americans on making sure we're competitive with the world. This is the approach that we've always taken with our partners to the south. We will continue to take this seriously instead of looking for, venal partisan advantage.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that Buy America remains in place today on Canada and that it has been expanded under this Prime Minister to include the federal government, something that was specifically exempted from the earlier NAFTA. But Trump demanded it, and this Prime Minister was in the habit of backing down to everything Trump demanded. Now, we thought that when Trump was gone, that he was going to have an easier time, but now Biden is pushing him around. Mr. Speaker, putting partisanship aside, I think we as Conservatives can all agree we don't like any Prime Minister, including a Liberal Prime Minister, to be pushed around like this by an American president. Will he end it tomorrow?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have consistently stood up for Canadians, whether it was Canadian auto workers, Canadian steel workers, whether it was making sure we renegotiated NAFTA in strong ways, or whether we stood up for inclusion of Canadian electric vehicles production in the new IRA. We will continue to work constructively with our partners to the south. We will continue to defend Canadian interests. We will continue to grow our economies together at a time where the world needs a North America to be working together as allies to project our success and our values to the world. That's what we will do while he plays partisan games.
Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents in the Northwest Territories are very troubled by the recent news that millions of litres of oil sands tailings in northern Alberta were leaked without notifying communities at risk for 9 months. It's unacceptable that neither Imperial Oil nor the Alberta regulator bothered to let Northerners know about this potential threat to our water quality. Can the Prime Minister share what the Government of Canada is doing to address the concerns of my constituents on this matter?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as always, I thank the member for the Northwest Territories for his question, his advocacy on behalf of his constituents in a very, very serious situation. We are deeply concerned about the health and well-being of the affected communities. Ministers have been in regular contact with the impacted communities, quickly providing supplies and conducting water testing. We need to understand why the company and the regulator were so slow to notify. We expect to see a clear remediation plan from the company so communities can get the answers they deserve and that this never happens again.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The Indian government has suspended cell phone service, internet service, and social media accounts, on top of blocking journalists from covering what's happening while heavy military presence rolls into Punjab. Why has the Prime Minister remained silent on this? And will he accept and commit to the NDP demands to boycott the G20 events in Chandigarh and Kashmir, to ban BJP officials from entering Canada who've uttered death threats against Canadians, and do everything possible to ensure the safety of Canadians abroad?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously Canada is monitoring the situation in Punjab closely. We're looking forward to a swift return to a more stable situation.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The IPCC report of this week is sobering reading. It requires of all of us that we're prepared to do more, be braver, be bolder, because nothing less than our children's future is at stake. It's a ticking time bomb, as it's been described, and the report finds that deep emissions reductions are required in the near term before 2025 at the latest. For Canada, that means ban fracking. It means reverse Bay du Nord and cancel the $30 billion boondoggle Trans Mountain Pipeline now!
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Minister.
Speaker, since 2015, we've taken concrete actions to address climate change. Our government has committed over $120 billion and introduced over 100 measures, including a price on pollution, to support environmental action and climate mitigation. And as the Minister of Environment said this week, we will be looking very closely at this report.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. Comme il est 15h07.
It being 3:15 p.m., pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at second reading stage of Bill